It's Cardboard Time, episode number 93, and I'm your host, Arwen Kathke. On today's episode, we have reviews of Gnome Hollow and Lovestruck, and also an interview with Joseph Frederick of Ludimus Games. Well, I have had a bit of a rest from Gen Con. I am starting to play the games that I picked up there. I was dealing with a little bit of con crud that unfortunately circulated around the house, so if I do sound a bit off, I am still recovering just a little bit from that, so that's probably why. But let's get into the shelf of aspiration updates. I am at 135. It is up by 4. But that doesn't mean that just with that little bit of movement that there hasn't been a huge amount of activity. So let's talk about the incoming games. 27 since the last time that we did one of these. 24 of which were originally unplayed. 3 of them I had already played when I did acquire them. And a lot to talk about here. So let's get into it. Crowdfunding, 2 games came in, Terminus and Burn the Fort. Terminus, I really liked the looks of when it came to crowdfunding, so I took a chance on it. I saw a lot of people were getting into that as well as a couple of friends of mine, so I did decide to pick that up. Burn the Fort, I did crowdfund this with my friends Zoe and Lizzie, and we got the 4 copy pack. This is a game that I think is great for it to be out there, to exist, to tell a different story. I think that maybe, it's going to be a little bit lighter for me on the complexity scale, but at the same time, I'm very interested to see how it tells its story and see what it can do. As far as review copies go, 16 of those to talk about, a lot of work ahead of me. So let's start with the Elder Scrolls Betrayal of the Second Era from Chip Theory Games. This is the big one. This is one that I was hoping to reveal during my video that I'm still working on, but I do need a little bit of time to kind of go through and sort my thoughts out, sort the video out, and it's not just an easy plug and play kind of thing. This is going to be a beast. I've already played through a session of it. I have really enjoyed myself with this, and I wasn't sure whether or not I was going to take this one on, but seeing what the team did, I really kind of thought about it and I said, "You know what? I think I'm going to." There will be a video coming out for this probably at some point late next month. So look forward to that. It's going to go through who I think should buy it, who I think might need to stay away from it or want to stay away from it rather, and so on and so forth. So it's going to be very interesting to talk about that subject and see who this is for, who it's not for, and what my thoughts are on it. But I've really been enjoying myself quite a bit with that. So more to come on that in the future. So we're syncing. This is Joseph Frederick's game from Ludimus Games. This one I was hoping to get done for this episode. I will have it done for the next episode. We have some guests coming into town, so we want to make sure we get a proper play of that, and we will have the time to do that in the next week. Biomos. This was a North Star release that I decided to get. I thought it would be good for the side table, and it was, in fact, good for the side table. There will be a review coming for that very soon. Very good to solo this game. I'm interested to see what it does with a multiplayer setup, but the solo so far has been quite good. Looking forward to talking about that. Open season. I have not gotten to play this, but it looked like it was going to be an engine buildery kind of game with some negative points as well. You're building up this tableau, and that determines your scoring conditions, cards you want to avoid, cards you want to get, that kind of thing. So that one looked good. That's why I asked for that. Isla and Something Shiny. This is a storytelling game. I have gotten through this. I will probably play it again at some point, but I've got some thoughts on this one. I really enjoyed my first playthrough of it, but it was not what I was expecting, kind of in a good way. And there's some things that I do want to talk about with that as well. That was another North Star release. And then Rallyman Dirt. I've heard a lot about this racing game. I've heard that it's quite good. Press your luck with some dice rolling. And I thought it looked a little bit different from your traditional racing games. That's why I decided to get this one. Tower Up. I have heard again some very good things about Tower Up, about the, low complexity but fun options that it opens up. We did get a play of this in on Saturday and had quite a bit of fun with it. That will be in a upcoming episode as well. Compile Main 1. Mostly picked this up for trying to broaden my horizons with two-player play, as well as Kyperium. Compile just looks like a very straightforward card game, and then Kyperium is actually a card game where you place down cards and then they have worker placement spaces for your opponent to utilize as well. Lovestruck is a game that I am going to talk about today. This it's not normally in my wheelhouse. A game about social deduction, I'm very particular when it comes to that. But the theme seemed very interesting. The mechanics of it seemed very interesting, and that's why I picked it up. And I will be talking about that on this episode. I did get Seaside. This was a game that I got to play during Cardboard Fest when I had it over the 4th of July holiday. And glad that I picked up a review copy of this. Looking forward to diving a little bit more into it and then doing a review. I had a good experience with it. That's why I requested the review copy. River Valley Glassworks, rather. This is a game that I played on BGA, and during the all play party, we did get a copy of that. I am very happy to say that I did get to play this solo. I am looking forward to playing more of it solo as well, but really good experiences with this. It definitely clicks a lot more when you get it to the tabletop. And I will be talking about that concept in another game that I'm going to be talking about here coming up very shortly. In addition to that, Cyber Pet Quest. This was a new Dead Alive release. I do like the games that Dead Alive puts out historically in the past, so I wanted to take a look at this. It's very cute as well. Who doesn't love pets? And sending them on adventures and that to save their owners. And then Stock Exchange. This is a new release from the op. It looked quite interesting. We were starting to get to the point where we have multiple different commodities games based on, plants. And we're going to be talking about another one of those in a minute. But I wanted to take a look at that just because I'm also taking a look at vegetable stock at some point very soon. That one I did purchase. This one I did get a review copy of from the op. And speaking of that, I also got Gnome Hollow that I will be talking about on this episode, the game that everybody's talking about as well. I'll be weighing in on Gnome Hollow. I did get to play this one during Origins, not a complete game, but I did get to play a complete game on Board Game Arena. And then finally, once I did get it in, I have played it since. And I do have some thoughts on the Board Game Arena implementation and how it relates to my experience with the game overall. And then finally, Flip 7 from the op as well. This I heard a lot of very good things about. I have heard that Jamie is quite a whiz at Flip 7. So I decided to put in a request for that as well. And I have played quite a few games of this already. Looking forward to playing a few more and then talking about it very soon. It is on my list of things to get through. So those are my review copies and all the work that I have in the next couple of months and some of the things that you'll be hearing about on the podcast. So, to go to purchases, six of those to talk about. Vegetable stock, I just mentioned this I purchased from Arcane Wonders. I had heard a lot about this from Suzanne Sheldon. She said that she really liked it. This is a reimplementation of that. So I did get to play one game of that. I do want to play some more of it with different player counts to see how it plays. Things and Rings, I did pick this one up after playing it at Gen Con. Wanted to make sure that I got my hands on a copy of it, and I did pick that up. The Phoenix Syndicate was a free game that was just given to me by Asmodee Games, not in exchange for a review, but basically it was a project that they had put out kind of around the pandemic time. Never really got traction on it, and they were just kind of giving it out so that people could be familiar with their games and, kind of build up some interest. I actually really am looking forward to playing this after seeing, more information on it. Normally, I'm not really big into free games, and I will say that the cover art doesn't really look exciting. The production doesn't look super exciting, but I do think that the gameplay is going to be kind of cool from what I have seen online. We'll see how that comes together. And then Rock Hard 1977, a big thanks to Rob Chase for purchasing this for me, and a reminder that I owe him about $55 for this game. This, fortunately, he was so kind as to pick this up and get it signed for me as well. So I am looking forward to playing it very soon. This one's definitely on my short list of games to probably take with me to Dragon Con at the end of the month and take a look at as well. Panda Royale. This was a game that I was going to pick up at Origins. I don't understand the theming on it. It has nothing to do with pandas, really. It's just rolling a bunch of dice, but it works so incredibly well. I have some things to say about this one on an upcoming episode as well. We did get that to the table this weekend and really, really enjoyed it. And then finally, Rolling Realms Redux just came in. Jordan ordered that for me, and looking forward to getting that to the table, as well as the new solo mode, which should be a very interesting time as well. I like the golf implementation. I thought it was kind of cool. I'm really curious to see what they're going to do with this new kind of more of a football type deal that they have going on, almost like a tournament style type deal. So, yeah, interesting to see what they do with this. And then we're going to go into the played games. So stick with me. The reviews are coming, I swear. When it comes to the games I played, both the Cascadia rolling games, a very good roll and write. I do have a side table review of those that are up on TikTok as well as YouTube. And so if you want to go check those out and see what my thoughts were as far as that being a good side table game, I would like to talk about this in the future. I'm not sure with my schedule when I'm going to fit that in. If I do, hopefully soon, bring that out on the podcast. Vegetable stock, like I said, I did play. Biomos, I already mentioned that I played that. Isla and Something Shiny. Flip 7. Lovestruck, obviously. If I'm talking about it, hopefully I played it. Things and Rings. The Elder Scrolls Betrayal of the Second Era. Kyperium, I did get out to the table, as well as Panda Royale and Tower Up. So you're probably wondering, what are the other 8 games, with the math that's going on? 24 unplayed games that were coming in. I only mentioned 12. Well, there were another 8 games that I decided to sell unplayed at the flea market at Critical Hit. Decided to put them in relatively last minute and, see if they would sell. I didn't want to put a huge amount of work into trying to get rid of these, but the opportunity presented itself. and got a good turnaround. I got rid of Worker Placement, Volt, Ventura, Rush and Crush, Ladies and Gentlemen, Goths Save the Queen, Gear World, The Borderlands, and Drunk Quest. Particularly of note, none of those really kind of appealed to me. At one point, Ladies and Gentlemen was kind of appealing to me, but that was pre-transition, and now with, the gender role play and everything, just not really appealing to me. I've heard that it's fun, but for me and to get the groups together that really want to play it, it's not really in our wheelhouse with a lot of the groups that we do play with. And then Drunk Quest, I got this all the way back when I visited up to Vancouver on a trip out to Seattle way back when. This was early in my acquisition days, and it's just not super appealing to me right now. I hardly ever drink as it is anymore. The occasional beer, some cocktails, whatever. But to really get engaged in a game like that, it's just not my kind of thing anymore. So I never got it out to the table. So, hopefully somebody is able to put that to better use and doesn't go to the hospital doing it. I think that's the best that we can hope for. So that is the Shelf of Aspiration update. A lot going on there. Hopefully, my acquisitions will kind of taper off. I know I do have some packages that are on the way with some more review copies and a couple of more crowdfunding copies, but I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to run that number down a little bit with some guests coming into town and Dragon Con coming up as well. So there you go. There is the massive updates. And now we can get into reviews, what you've all been waiting for. Unless you're waiting for the interview on the back end, then you're going to have to wait a little bit longer. So let's get into Gnome Hollow. This is from 2 to 4 players in 45 to 60 minutes, designed by Ammon Anderson. The art is by Ammon Anderson and Patrick Spazinate, published by The Op. Since the beginning of time, gnomes have been the humble caretakers of nature. In secret, they emerge from their underground homes to maintain meticulous rings of mushrooms known to the human folk as fairy rings. But the work must be done quickly because as soon as a mushroom path is finished, the mushrooms are ready for picking. Who will be the cleverest gnome and harvest the most mushrooms by the end of the season? Gnome Hollow is a spatial tile placement, worker placement game in which you grow a tabletop garden of mushrooms and flowers. Each piece is a hand painted watercolor that captures the whimsical feel of gnomes and nature. Turns are deceptively simple. Players place tiles into the garden and move a gnome to take a single action on their turn. Come to Gnome Hollow and experience a peaceful garden, the thrill of competing to harvest buckets of mushrooms, and the reward of gathering in all of your shiny treasures. So, thank you to the Op for the review copy of this. This is one that I probably would have picked up by myself anyways, but this helps. I requested this one after I played this with Ray at Origins this year. I was very fortunate to again run into her, and basically she said, "Hey, what have you got going on this afternoon?" I said, "Nothing. I'd like to play games." And she goes, "I can facilitate that." And got to play this wonderful game that I had heard so much about. Spoilers, I do very much enjoy this game. I love the production of this, and this is going to be the first thing that really stands out. The art and the table presence. I really love the way that this looks on the table. Like I said in the introduction, there's a lot of watercolors. It's just a very nice, serene presentation. I think that it's going to draw a lot of people in as well. I don't have the deluxe components yet, but even the standard components that it comes with are very, very nice, very good quality as well. So this is one that artwork, that table presence, It's really going to make an impact when you get it out to the table, especially at a convention. People are going to be looking at it and saying, "Oh, what's that? That looks cool." The magnetic player boards as well. Let me talk about this again. I absolutely love the fact that these exist. I wish they existed in more games. And I love what they're doing here with these. You are going to be moving your little player tokens from one area of the board, which is kind of indicating your score at the end of the game, and you are going to take one that is basically like your stopper of this is what I'm going to score. You're going to move that once you complete one of the rings. You're going to mark that off with one of your player tokens, in sequential order, and then you're going to get some sort of bonus. The magnetic player boards just work so well with that. You could have done a dual layer, but I think that these work even better than a dual layer board. This game is kind of, I would say that it's most often compared to Carcassonne. Yes and no. You're similar in your path building. There is an opportunity for a little bit of blocking, but to me, there doesn't feel like as many opportunities to really have that direct player interaction. And the market itself that you're going to be selling these mushrooms in actually feels like there's more interaction than the laying of the paths themselves sometimes. You are going to be blocked off. You do have to have consent to place a tile if somebody does own a specific path, unless you are talking about putting a wild flower tile down that you get from, completing some of your tasks. And to me, the market feels like where that interaction is going to be, because you're going to be selling these mushrooms that you're going to be gathering. You're going to be placing markers there to block off, hey, you cannot sell 6 mushrooms anymore for this price. You have to do 5 or 7, whatever isn't marked off. So you can really block somebody that is ready to go to sell, that has their mushrooms, especially with that top amount that you can sell a group of mushrooms for, and then starting to move down, you are going to have much more control over that than, just kind of interfering with the paths. I I would be interested to play with a player that really did want to get into more of that player interaction and force that, because I feel like the people that I play these games with don't necessarily really get into that direct kind of conflict. So I'd be interested to see what that looks like with a little bit of a different player set. So this a lot of times to me felt like we were doing our own thing, which I am absolutely fine with. I just let me build my little rings and let me be off by myself and make my shapes. That is what I like. And I think that this does lend a lot to that, with the potential for some direct conflict. This game, to me, does lose a lot on the BGA implementation. I have played a good amount of it. It is fine on BGA. It's not that the BGA implementation is bad. I just think it's so much easier to see what's going on, at least for me on the table itself, that if I had just played the BGA implementation, I probably would have missed out on a lot, and I probably wouldn't be recommending this game now. I'm very glad that this was my first introduction to the game, that I got exposure to the physical version of it, just because I couldn't really grasp what was going on necessarily. Once it got to the table and understanding kind of came back to me, and I got to see exactly what was going on much easier. So I would definitely recommend playing this in person. You can get an impression of what's going on BGA, but definitely want to play this in person. I would also recommend playing with the more advanced sign. Those allow you to also trade in addition to gaining some sort of benefit, where the regular signposts just give you some sort of benefit of mushrooms or a tile or whatever. That was more fun to me, as well as the more advanced player board. So you have 2 sides to your player board. One is just making a specific group of a number of tiles. The advanced board is a specific pattern on that circle. And each one will have a, different reward that you get to turn in for. That said, I do think that the trade ratios for the advanced signposts are a little bit odd. You are trading a lower amount of a lower value mushroom for a higher amount of a higher value mushroom. Usually it is the reverse. I guess I'm just used to, hey, if I have this low value mushroom, I'm going to trade two of these lower value mushrooms in for one of the higher value. And this is actually the opposite, where you can do like a two lower value for three higher value. And you're going to be given those two lower value mushrooms to trade in. So I thought that that was interesting. I'm not exactly sure about that. I might agree with that a little bit more with more plays further on down the road. The advanced player board really does force players to really concentrate on making certain shapes. It does crank up the difficulty just a little bit, and to me, made the game a little bit more satisfying. It does close off your options a little bit. You are a little bit more concerned about what is coming up so that you can close things off in a very particular way. But I enjoyed that. So I like the mechanics of that. I would definitely advise if you're going to play this game after a couple of rounds on that basic side to check that out as well. I also like the mechanical interactions between the tile laying and the marketplace to get points by trading in mushrooms. I thought everything made sense. You go, you close these off, you get points, you get this little reward, you get mushrooms, you get that little dopamine hit of, I get to do all this stuff and it's going to give me stuff that I get to trade in for more stuff. And ultimately, points will happen. That to me is one of the most satisfying things that you can do in a game. Give me a lot of stuff. Give me, those cascading actions as well, which you can get in this game. Setup can be a little bit time consuming for this game, especially sorting through mushrooms. I will say that the insert might have been a little bit better if it had like removable trays for the mushrooms inside of it. We did get to play Tower Up this weekend. I thought that that did a fantastic job, aside from being a lot of plastic, to giving a very, very quick setup. I would have liked to have seen that here, but it's a minor gripe. Just a thought for the future. The color vision on this was also very good overall as well. The gnomes were different shapes, the mushrooms were all different shapes, the flowers were all different shapes. And then on the player board, the player trackers didn't really matter what color they were, but they did match. I was able to tell them apart fairly easily. I just think it was a very good production overall as far as that color vision aspect goes. So, for my final thoughts, again, I would have picked this up regardless of whether I got a review copy or not. I do really like this game. I think this is going to be high on a lot of people's lists this year due to, the accessibility with the theme as well as the charm factor. I like it a lot due to the spatial puzzle that it's there, and I honestly wish that we had more magnetic player boards and way more games. More magnetic player boards 2025, please. I would love to see that. Although they do stick to the magnetic parts of my table a little bit too much. That is one gripe that I have, but it's not a publisher's fault that I bought a table that has magnets in it. So I am looking forward to playing more of this. It's definitely a keeper, one that I would advise you definitely check out, especially if you like games like Carcassonne, if you like those tile placement games and path laying, path building. It's going to satisfy you quite a bit. Really like this game, Gnome Hollow. And then the other game that I am talking about today is Lovestruck. This is from 5 to 10 players in 45 to 90 minutes, designed by George Lee and published by Rabble. You have just been selected to appear as a contestant on a new reality dating show. While every contestant on the show claims to be looking for love, some contestants are actually just trying to get famous. Your goal is to figure out who is who and couple up with the right contestant at the end of the show. Every round, or episode, of Lovestruck has dates that help you get to know the other contestants by playing action cards. Dates that resolve in love grant you additional action cards and allow you to couple up with other contestants. Dates that result in drama grant you additional screen time. Some action cards also have special actions that can help you get chosen for dates, gain more screen time, or even sabotage other couples. The show culminates in a season finale where the final couples are decided, and you get to decide who you want to leave the show with, or you leave the show alone. Match correctly, and you get your picture perfect romance, at least for the 6 to 8 months after the show airs. Match incorrectly, and you may go home alone, or worse, with someone who isn't who you think they are. So thanks to Rabble for the review copy. I do get some a decent amount of requests for review copies now. Like, do you want to look at this? Do you want to look at that? And with a couple of publishers, it is very much what interests you, which I have been much better at trying to figure out exactly what is going to be of interest. What am I going to like? Because I don't want to spend time reviewing stuff that I don't like. So normally for me, a game like this, at first glance, I looked at it and I said, okay, do I really want another social deduction game? But I think the combination of the social deduction with the theme seemed really interesting. And I was initially getting that kind of, mystery show, there there was a Netflix show that I can't remember the name of, so I'm just not going to dig myself into more of a hole. But basically you didn't know who the other person that you were talking to was, and you had to talk through computers. Y'all know what I'm talking about, and you can correct me and let me know how awful I am for not knowing the name of the show that I'm referencing. But at first I was getting those vibes. And then this did take a little bit of a different turn, but I was into it. I was into it once I started playing. So I thought it was very interesting. The game is very well executed. The roles that are based on, typical tropes. You have the sweetheart, you have kind of the party person, etc. And I think with the exception of one card that was maybe a little bit iffy, I did think that it was very, very well executed. In addition to that, the roles didn't necessarily correspond to a gender binary, which makes the game much more accessible as well. Everybody can take the role that they want, especially if you want to get into that role playing aspect. I know that a lot of people do like to do that. For us, it was a little bit toned down. There was a little bit of it, but there wasn't a huge amount. The rule book does say, hey, if you want to play it up, if you want to ham it up, that's absolutely fine. It's going to make the game more fun. And I do think that this game is going to be more fun for those people that really want to get into it, that really want to have that experience, and has an entire table filled with people that want to do that. This we did play at our friend Matt's birthday party. So Matt, happy birthday once again. Thank you for the invite, and I was very glad that I was able to go. We had that at a local microbrewery. This is playable in a relatively small footprint as long as you do have the width of the table to accommodate the full 5 to 10 player count, which we did. They had like lots of long bench tables. Hate benches. I just can't. Wearing a skirt and trying to, lift my leg over a bench doesn't necessarily always end well. I will let you figure the rest of that out mechanically. It's fine. So back to the game. Social deduction elements in this game were actually much easier for me to grasp than most games of the genre. So for whatever reason, I have never been good at games, with a lot of social deduction. The resistance I was never really good at. I could kind of do the thing rather pretty well. Just some games click with me, other games don't. This one was very straightforward. I was able to kind of figure out, okay, this is a very suspicious move. You're making a lot of moves in this pattern. I can kind of get that. So it was kind of cool to see that. In addition, this did have a mechanic where you weren't always sure how many people that you had were in the show for the right reasons and how many were in for the wrong. You did have some variation there. I like when games do that. I like that little bit of randomness and that little bit of, indecisiveness. Who are we dealing with? That to me makes the game a lot more interesting. While this game is going to be more interesting at higher player counts, it will last a lot longer at those top player counts. So if you're playing with 10, it is going to last a lot longer. There is going to be a decent amount of downtime as players make their decisions. So during the, kind of confessional or non-date villa actions, I think they were called, you are going to be going around one at a time and doing one or even two actions, per person. So that is going to take a while to get around everybody. So you may lose a few people in that time frame as well. Um, this is relatively easy to teach. We did have a player that was brand new to hobby games that took a little bit longer to teach it to, but things started to click as we went. I think that if you were playing this with a bunch of people that knew what they were doing, that played a social deduction game before, this is going to be very, very straightforward to teach. Just a little bit longer for people who don't necessarily have that experience that some of the more experienced players do. Again, if we didn't tend to do a lot of role playing, I think if we did, it would have enhanced the game a little bit more. But everybody at the table has to enjoy getting into that role. And I think if you're not somebody that is just into games for the mechanics, I think if you are that kind of person, this might not necessarily sit, the best with you. You may want to have a little bit more straightforward deduction game as opposed to having the role playing and, that kind of theme piece it on top. I think that, this is going to kind of polarize people a little bit. So I will say Rabble is now getting this into stores, like your Barnes and Noble, your Meyer as well. And I'm very glad to see that publishers on their way up are getting more games like this into the mainstream outlets. I do like seeing these types of games, that aren't these mass produced games come in, have different themes, have something unique, that they're bringing to the table as well. So color vision, the only gripe that I have for this is I wish the symbols, each of the little player tokens does have a symbol on it. It is on the front of the card, and I don't know, I think I've seen some variations on the cards that actually did have the symbol on the backside of the card with all the, different actions that you could take. You are always going to have the backside of the card basically face up so that you can see what your actions are, what they're costing, etc. you know, uh, there are symbols again on the front. They're not necessarily on the back. And that's where you're going to have, all of your reference information. That's what you're going to be referencing the whole time. And you're going to want it on there, which unfortunately it's not. So that is a little bit of a downside. And the colors do tend to kind of mingle together, at least for me, just because of, the colors that were chosen for the aesthetic. That was the one little gripe that I had with that I wish that the symbols had been printed on that backside. So I enjoyed playing this a lot more than a game like The Resistance. It won't, I don't think it's looking to replace something deeper like Blood on the Clock Tower or The Thing. So I think if you're in the mood for a very good, fun social deduction game that's really on the lighter side of things, I feel like this could be a really good entry point over, your more traditional games like Avalon Resistance, etc. I think to me it was more palatable. It got more people engaged. People look at the Resistance, especially those newer gamers, and they're like, I don't like sci-fi or whatever. This is a game that is kind of palatable to a different audience. I love seeing that. So, good on Rabble for doing that. This will be staying on my shelves. I'm looking forward to more rounds of this at my larger gatherings with more of those non-experienced gamers. I do think that I could teach this a little bit better this time. Having played through it, knowing the different beats that are going to be happening, I think that I could relate it a little bit more, to those newer gamers. And yeah, this was a good one. A lot of fun conversation that we had after, and you get those texts afterwards as well that are saying, "Oh yeah, I trust you," and that kind of thing. Love walking away with that. It's fantastic. So that is Lovestruck. And stay tuned because coming up, we have an interview with Joseph Frederick. On today's interview segment, we have Joseph Frederick, designer of Worst Sinking and founder of Ludimus Games. Joseph, welcome to Cardboard Time.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
So this is a long time in the making. We have been going to different conventions since I think it was like the pandemic era conventions that were going on.
At least just right after, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm starting to remember these things and starting to remember like what conventions with masks were and like Gen Con with 50,000 people as opposed to probably the 80,000 that we're looking at right now.
Oh my gosh, is that how much?
I
haven't
think
even...
That's supposedly what we're looking at right now.
Holy cow.
So it is crazy here. We are sitting on a floor behind the Modifius Entertainment booth. This is not the first floor interview that I've done, but with a convention like this, space is at a premium, and you just have to do what you have to do.
Sit where you can.
So let's go back to how we met. We met through a very special individual in both of our lives, Matt Hawker, also known as the Ham Lad sometimes. There's a story behind that. Y'all aren't getting it right now. So how did you meet Matt?
I met Matt through Break My Game, which is we both lived in Northern Virginia. It was right before COVID started. I was looking for board game playtesting communities. I was thinking about starting my own, and then I looked on Meetup and found Break My Game, which was just a small local community of playtesters and a few designers who were getting together every month or so and playtesting their games. And I thought, cool, I'll try that out. I went to one in College Park, Maryland, and Elizabeth Hargrave was there and blew my mind. Didn't know she was local, didn't know that I should have brought my copy of Wingspan, but at that point, and I had a blast. I think she was working on Oceania expansion at that point, and so I got to play test that and a few other games, and I had a blast. And I was like, these are my people. Fast forward a month, I'm like, all right, ready to go to the next one, and COVID hits.
Oh,
yeah. So I reached out to organizer Danny Palmer, and like I wanted to keep going. Like I didn't want to lose the opportunity. So I asked them if they'd be interested in, I do graphic design, so I was like, I'd love to be helpful in any way. And they mentioned that they had just started a Discord, so we could continue this online. And that's where I met Matt, because Matt is the Discord guru. He's basically runs the Discord for Break My Game. And I helped kind of, put a visual spin on all the BMG logo. I do our events graphics on social media and emojis, the cute little emojis that are on the Discord as well. And yeah, we kind of run it as the three admins of the Discord, and we also since then have grown. I think we're the largest playtesting community on Discord globally, which is amazing. It's crazy. And then, during that process through COVID, we also became a nonprofit. So I serve as vice chair. Matt is, the chairman. And it's just been, Matt was kind of the start of, I met Matt at the start of my whole board game career, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, that was a very long story.
No, it's a good story, and I think it's a reminder that playtesting in that community is so incredibly important to board gaming. It's essential.
Would not be here without Break My Game or Matt or all that. Yeah.
Fantastic community. as well. So why don't you give a little bit of history, now that we know about Break My Game, a little bit of history about Ludimus and yourself and the founding of the company.
Sure, yeah. I wanted to run my own company for a while. I do graphic design. I did graphic design as freelance for a while, and I always work with clients that are usually starting up and doing their own thing, and I wanted to also do that as well. So I kind of stopped the freelance stuff and decided to focus on myself for once and do something with that. And of course, I've been designing games for half my life. I actually went to school for video game art and design, graduated in that, and then decided I didn't want to move to West Coast. So that ended my video game career. Mm-hmm. And then, I just decided analog games were probably easier to do.
In theory, they look easier, but...
Yeah. Well, I'll say this. I went to school for the artistic side of video game art design.
Yep.
I am not a programmer. I cannot code for my life. I have tried, but I just can't. And so, in the video game world, you need artists and video game programmers. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the times, those two are like water and oil. They just don't mix. And I wanted to be able to do it all myself, or at least try to do it all myself. And I can kind of do that with board games. That isn't to say I'm a graphic designer, but I'm not an illustrator. So I hired out to do certain aspects of the game, projects. But yeah, so that was a big reason why I shifted to board games. Yeah, I formed Ludimus Games in 2022, just about right before we launched We're Sinking on Kickstarter. And it's been a while, but it seems like it was just the other day.
It's been a crazy ride, because I look back to those times and I'm like, was it that long ago?
Yeah.
And it has been. I think the most striking thing about We're Sinking is the boat in the center. So if you've ever been to a convention and you've seen it, you'll recognize the boat and you'll immediately see, oh yeah, I know this game. So can you explain a little bit about We're Sinking to the audience?
Yeah, We're Sinking is that game with the boat that doesn't float. It's basically a 3 to 6 player game where you all can work together up to a certain point, and then there's only one winner. But there's 2 ways to win. Either the ship sinks, in which case you want to be the one with the fewest cards in your hand, so you're light enough to get in the lifeboat and escape. Or you want to be the one with you could defeat the Kraken or whatever enemy you're going up against. And if that happens, you want to be the one with the most treasure in your hands, because you want to be the wealthiest pirate at the end of the day.
Obviously.
Yeah, so who doesn't? So 2 different ways to to play, only one winner, and lots of opportunities to work as a team and backstab along the way.
It's like you've explained this before once or twice.
A few hundred times just in the past 3 days. It's still ongoing. Yep.
Yeah. So, this was a game that crowdfunded. You were successful on crowdfunding. Can you explain some of the things that you've learned through the process, what it was like, the different steps that you had to go through, and then ultimately things that you've taken away from that experience as well?
Yeah, it was... it always feels like a whirlwind in the moment. Looking back at it, I was learning everything for the first time too. I definitely have learned a lot of things that I'll be doing for the next Kickstarter. Definitely planning ahead and getting your copies out to content creators is super important to do. They have time and schedules too, and they can't just drop everything and play your game. That takes time. That's they're especially in the middle of Gen Con, season. They got a lot of stuff going on. Mm-hmm. So you want to make sure to get that stuff to them at least, 3 or 2 months in advance. So they got time to, take that in consideration before you launch. There's definitely little trinkets of things here and there I plan on doing differently. But yeah, ultimately I was super happy and just ecstatic with the outcome of the first Kickstarter, and to everyone who backed, I can't thank them enough.
So in the theme and the spirit of the game, are you afraid of sinking?
Funny enough, yeah. I'm actually terrified I can't swim, not a very good swimmer at all. Mm-hmm. Terrified of the open sea. So yeah, you won't catch me on a boat. That's for sure.
So why the theme? If you're like afraid of this, was it a challenge for you, or was it something that you wanted to overcome? How did that come about?
Well, it started with the mechanics. We were doing a game jam at Break My Game, and one of the mechanics was Prisoner's Dilemma, which, for those who don't know, it's a famous game design theory of like if you have two people in prison and one person tells, then you get out scot-free, but if you both tell, then you both get a half sentence, but it's something like that. I'm probably screwing that up. I'm brain fried right now.
Look up Prisoner's Dilemma.
Please look up that. Yeah, because it's probably a better description than what I just gave. But anyways, that was a game jam we did, and so I worked on throwing some mechanics together for that for a few weeks, and kind of came up with the skeleton of We're Sinking, and it was pretty rudimentary, not great, but it got me percolating on an idea of like, well, you're pirates, and you're trying to go for treasure, but you don't want to have too much treasure because you're sinking, and someone needs to be working on the ship, and treasure's heavy. So that was kind of the initial thoughts about it, and it turned into We're Sinking not the Prisoner's Dilemma, but the Pirate's Dilemma.
Very cool. So where have you found inspiration outside of gaming? I follow a lot of like different graphic designers, and I follow a lot of people on Instagram, Pinterest is still a thing that I follow, so but I find a lot of fun in following what's trending on like design style and things like that, and try to stay on top of whatever's trending in the graphic design world. I don't know, that's a tough question. Do you have any resources that you think now, looking back, that newer publishers can kind of take advantage of or use as really good resources for kind of breaking into the industry?
Gamma's a great one. I didn't really know about Gamma before I started. I joined after I launched on Kickstarter, and I still don't think I'm taking full advantage of the opportunities that they provide, publishers, especially self-publishers. I know there's a new one out there that Elizabeth Hargrave is also helming. Tabletop
Designers Association, maybe?
That's the one.
Yeah.
I haven't joined that one yet, but I'm planning on doing it soon. They help designers work on contracts with designers and things like that, and it's something that I'm planning on doing pretty soon, is actually working with some other designers. So
Ooh.
I'm definitely going to be needing their expertise on writing contracts and stuff like that, because I want to make sure everyone is fair and square, getting what they deserve.
Yeah. That's very exciting news. And speaking of news, you have a game that is demoing right now at Origin, or at Gen Con, called Toppings. Now, this is a game that you've been working on for quite a while and actually put on hiatus in 2021.
Yeah.
Can you explain that process, why that got put on hiatus, and now why you're returning to the subject?
Sure. It's because I have a short attention span. Because we were working on another game jam with Work BMG, and it had to do with I Cut You Choose and rondelles as a mechanic, and I kind of came up with toppings through that. Everyone had a lot of fun with it, and I was very much anticipating this to be like the first game that like launches Ludomus Games, and then We're Sinking happened. Like, the idea stuck in my brain, and I was so excited about that one concept with We're Sinking, I had to just stop everything else I was working on. And I was like, okay, I'll come back to this pizza game. It can wait in the oven a little longer.
Yeah. Nice. I see what you did there.
So with We're Sinking out of the way, I've been happy to get back to it. I've added a bunch of new elements to it, and excited to start focusing on it and getting it out on Kickstarter soon.
Looks really cool, and one that I'm excited to see now that you've got your feet wet, you've published something, the ability to take all those lessons learned and be able to publish this as well is going to be really cool.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It feels like I've, learned a lot, so I feel, fairly confident about our next one. But at the same time, I feel like I don't know if anyone's going to show up. I hope they do. I hope they come and help support the game. Yeah, I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah. I think maybe that becomes a little bit easier now that you have a following, now that you have backers that have gotten worse thinking. They're able to go and say, hey, I want to make sure that I'm supporting this company, that I'm getting the next project. I think, Paverson's another one that I think of with Distilled. Dave Beck's, demoing his latest game over there. And it's just that kind of, hey, I've got backing from this. I'm going to build on that and, go on to the next project. So.
Yep. But speaking of that, man, you just reminded me I need to get over there and check out Luther.
Okay, listen. There is a dice tower over there that's shaped like I think it's an organ.
Oh my god. That's awesome.
I'm not going to spoil it for you. Roll the dice. Go over there and roll the dice.
Oh boy. Okay.
That's all I'm going to say.
Okay. You got me hyped. All right. I'm going to have to do that.
Those of you who are going to be watching or already have watched the Gen Con recap video at this point, you'll know what I'm talking about because I got video of it. So I'm looking forward to hearing what you think of that.
Sweet. Okay.
Very cool. A lot of cool innovations this year when it comes to design. A lot of new things that I'm seeing and really excited for.
Yeah. Sweet.
So what are your hobbies outside of gaming? Do you even have any?
Is being a dad one? I
mean,
mean,
I think so. I mean, it's almost a job and a responsibility, but yeah.
It is, but I love it. So therefore it can be a hobby,
yeah.
Right? No. It's, I love 3D printing. I have so many hobbies, and unfortunately I don't have a lot of time for them, but that's fine. I do 3D printing. I do a little bit of photography, a little bit of videography. Let's see, what else? Hiking occasionally, rock climbing, yeah.
Wide variety of interests.
A little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. What's on your table besides what you're developing right now?
Like in terms of other projects I'm working on?
No, just games that you're playing in general, if you are.
Got it, yeah. What was the last thing I played? I just got Boop, for one thing. I'm
adorable.
I'm super late on that one. There are already 2 more games in the Boop franchise. Me and my wife have been playing that, and if she's having a good time, I'm having a good time. So we're loving that one. Yeah.
Always.
So that one's great. Oh, I just got Fractured Skies from Ivy Studios.
Yeah. Yep.
I love Ivy Studios. They're one of my favorite publishers to follow. And yeah, I've played that. That one was really popular around the table. Everyone had a good time with that one. So I'm sure we'll be breaking that one out again soon.
Awesome. Sounds like fun. And if people want to get a hold of you, what are your socials?
Yeah, you can find me at Ludimus Games on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Thank you also for calling it Twitter, because we're not going to call it the other thing anymore. Even though somebody gets angry at that. Well, Joseph, it's been an absolute pleasure finally getting to do this. I know it's been a while in the making, and I'm happy that we're finally able to do it here at Gen Con in 2024.
Hope to be back again sometime.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
So I think that is going to do it for us today. If you want more information on Cardboard Time, you can always go to the website at cardboardtime.com. Our Instagram and Twitter is at cardboard_time. The Blue Sky is at Cardboard Time. The Discord is on the Tabletop Express server. You can always email me for an invite, or it is on that website. If you do want to email me, it is at cardboardtime@gmail.com. The Discord's a fantastic little server. Definitely invite everyone over there. A very friendly place, very open, accepting, and wonderful little nook that we discuss all sorts of things related to board games. So, as always, thanks again for listening, and we'll see you around the table in 2 weeks, and hopefully not with as nasally a voice, for another episode of Cardboard Time.